What if I told you that failure isn't the opposite of success, but rather the only honest path toward it? 5,000 failures. That's not a tragedy. That's a treasure map written in lessons most people will never have the courage to read. Good evening. You know, I've spent the better part of my life studying success. Not just the glossy magazine cover kind of success, but the real thing, the kind that lasts, the kind that satisfies, the kind that transforms a human life from ordinary to extraordinary. And in doing so, I've discovered something most people overlook entirely. Success and failure are not opposites. They're partners. They're two sides of the same coin. I recently reviewed a comprehensive study of 5,000 documented failures, business ventures that collapsed, dreams that deflated, plans that fell apart. And from that mountain of disappointment, 12 hard lessons emerged. Not theories, not pleasant philosophies to make us feel better. Hard truths. The kind that sting a little when you first hear them, but that can set you free if you have the courage to accept them. Let me share them with you now. First truth, most failures happen because people never truly decided what they wanted. They drifted, they responded, they reacted. But they never chose. You see, the human mind is a goal-seeking mechanism. It's designed to hit targets. But if you don't give it a target, it will simply wander, consuming your days with business that leads nowhere. The majority of those 5,000 failures began not with a bad decision, but with no real decision at all. Just vague wishes, someday dreams. I'd like to instead of I will. If you want different results, start with a clear decision. Write it down. Make it specific. Give your mind something to work toward. Second truth, people fail because they mistake motion for progress. Being busy is not the same as being effective. I've watched people run themselves ragged 12 hours a day, convinced they're building something, only to discover years later they've been rearranging deck chairs. Activity gives us the comfortable illusion of progress. But unless that activity is aligned with a definite purpose, it's just noise. Ask yourself tonight, am I doing things that matter or just things that keep me occupied? Third truth, failure loves company and most people provide it willingly. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. That's not cynicism, that's mathematics. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Their attitudes seep into yours. Their standards become your ceiling. Their doubts become your limitations. The studies showed that failed ventures were often surrounded by well-meaning people who subtly discouraged risk, questioned ambition, and celebrated safety. If everyone around you thinks your goal is unrealistic, you've either set a remarkable goal or chosen the wrong crowd. Fourth truth, people fail because they refuse to fail. I know that sounds contradictory, but hear me out. The fear of failure paralyzes more dreams than failure itself ever could. People studied every angle, waited for perfect conditions, and delayed until the opportunity passed them by. They failed by never starting. Failure isn't something to avoid, it's something to use. It's information, it's calibration, it's education you can't get any other way. The people who succeeded weren't the ones who avoided failure. They were the ones who failed faster, learned quicker, and adjusted accordingly. Thomas Edison tested 10,000 materials before he found the right filament for the light bulb. When asked about his failures, he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Fifth truth, blame is bankruptcy. This one's tough because it's so tempting. When things go wrong, the mind immediately searches for someone or something to blame. The economy, the boss, the timing, the government, your upbringing. But here's what I learned from those 5,000 failures. Every moment you spend blaming someone else is a moment you're not spending fixing the problem. Blame feels good temporarily, but it's poison long term. It robs you of power. Responsibility, on the other hand, is freedom. The moment you accept full responsibility for your results, good or bad, is the moment you reclaim control of your life. Sixth truth, comfort is a slow death. Your body and mind are designed to grow. When you stop challenging yourself, you don't stay the same, you decline. The people in this study who failed long-term had often succeeded short-term, then settled into comfort. They stopped learning, stopped adapting, stopped pushing. Comfort is seductive. It whispers, you've done enough, you've earned rest. But comfort is where dreams go to die. Growth happens at the edge of your abilities, not in the center of your comfort zone. Seventh truth, what you tolerate, you encourage. In business, in relationships, in your own behavior, what you permit, you promote. The study revealed that many failures were preceded by warning signs that were ignored. Small compromises, declining standards. Little excuses that grew into big problems. If you tolerate mediocrity from yourself or those around you, that's exactly what you'll get more of. Excellence requires vigilance. Eighth truth, people fail because they never develop the habit of finishing. Starting is easy. The world is full of half-finished projects, half-read books, half-learned skills. The difference between success and failure often comes down to one thing: completion. Finishing develops a kind of personal integrity. It teaches your subconscious mind that when you commit to something, it gets done. That internal credibility is more valuable than talent. Ninth truth, your habits are either building your future or dismantling it. There is no neutral ground. Every single day, you're voting for the person you're becoming. Every choice is a ballot. Sleep in or wake early, read or scroll, create or consume, save or spend. The problem is, these votes feel insignificant in the moment. One donut won't ruin your health. One skipped workout won't destroy your fitness. But here's the thing: you're not voting once. You're voting daily. And those votes accumulate into the election results called your life. The failures in this study weren't caused by one catastrophic decision. They were caused by 1,000 tiny choices repeated over time that compounded into collapse. 10th truth, you can't think your way into a new life. You must act your way into one. Ideas are wonderful. Planning is useful. But nothing happens until you move. The study showed that analysis paralysis claimed more victims than hasty action ever did. People waited to feel ready. They waited for clarity. They waited for confidence. But confidence doesn't come before action. It comes because of it. You build belief in yourself by keeping promises to yourself. You develop courage by doing the thing that frightens you. As the saying goes, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. 11th truth, most people fail because they underestimate the power of persistence. Success is not a matter of magnitude. It's a matter of time. If you keep going, if you stay in the game long enough, you will win. But most people quit right before the breakthrough. They give up in the fourth quarter. They stop 3 feet from the goal. They turn back when the summit is just beyond the next ridge. Why? Because they expected it to be easier. They thought success should come faster. But the truth, the hard, liberating truth, is this: everything worthwhile takes longer than you think it will. And that's okay. Because while everyone else is quitting, you'll keep going. And that's how you win. 12th truth, your life will not change until you do. This is the master lesson, the one that contains all the others. You cannot keep thinking the same thoughts, taking the same actions, living the same patterns, and expect a different result. If you want your life to change, you must change. Not your circumstances. Not other people, you. Change your thinking, and you'll change your beliefs. Change your beliefs, and you'll change your expectations. Change your expectations, and you'll change your attitude. Change your attitude, and you'll change your behavior. Change your behavior, and you'll change your results. It all starts with you. It always has. Now, here's what you must understand. These aren't just lessons. They're tests. Every single day, life administers these tests to see if you're serious. It checks to see if you'll choose purpose over comfort, responsibility over blame, action over hesitation. And here's the beautiful part: you get to retake the test as many times as you need. Yesterday's failure does not determine today's effort. The past does not equal the future unless you decide to live there. Remember this: success is not the result of one grand decision, but the inevitable outcome of 1,000 small ones made consistently in the direction of your definite purpose. That's the truth those 25,000 failures taught us. Success isn't mysterious, it's methodical, it's available. It's waiting for anyone disciplined enough to claim it. Failure is feedback, not finality. You know, there's something I need to tell you, and you might not like hearing it at first. Every single time you failed at something, that business idea that collapsed, that relationship that ended, that goal you didn't reach, there was a voice inside you. A quiet, insistent voice whispering that maybe you're just not cut out for this. Maybe success is for other people. People with better luck, better timing, better circumstances. And maybe, just maybe, you should stop trying before you embarrass yourself again. That voice has convinced more people to quit than any external obstacle ever could. Now, before you make any decisions based on that voice, let me ask you to consider something. What if everything you've been told about failure is backwards? What if the very thing you've been running from is actually running toward you, carrying a gift? What if failure isn't the universe telling you to stop, but rather showing you how to succeed? Stay with me here. I want you to think about a thermostat for a moment. Simple device. You set it to 70 degrees. If the room gets to 68, what does the thermostat do? It doesn't quit. It doesn't conclude that maintaining 70 degrees is impossible. It simply reads the current temperature, the gap between where things are and where they should be, and makes an adjustment. It turns on the heat. That gap, that difference, that failure to maintain the target temperature is actually information. It's feedback. And the thermostat uses that feedback to course correct. Your life works exactly the same way. Every failure you've experienced has been your internal thermostat detecting a gap. The gap between your current approach and the result you want. Between your current knowledge and the knowledge you need. Between your current habits and the habits that would serve you. That gap isn't a judgment. It's not a sentence. It's a reading. It's data. And here's what changes everything. The moment you stop interpreting failure as evidence of your inadequacy and start seeing it as evidence of what needs adjustment, you stop being a victim and become a scientist. Your life becomes a laboratory. Each attempt is an experiment. Each setback reveals a variable you hadn't accounted for. Thomas Edison didn't fail 10,000 times trying to create the light bulb. He successfully discovered 10,000 materials that didn't work, each one bringing him closer to the one that did. The failures weren't obstacles to his success. They were the stepping stones. They were necessary. They were instructive. They were valuable. You see, success leaves clues, but so does failure. And sometimes the clues in failure are even clearer, even more actionable. Failure tells you specifically what doesn't work. It eliminates options. It narrows the field. It points you in the right direction by showing you all the wrong ones. So here's the truth that can set you free. You're not failing. You're learning. You're not being rejected. You're being redirected. You're not running out of chances. You're gathering information. The only real failure is the failure to learn from failure. Now, doesn't that change everything? Comfort is the silent killer of potential. Let me tell you about a trap so subtle, so comfortable, so seemingly harmless that most people never realize they're caught in it until years, sometimes decades, have passed them by. You've worked hard. You've climbed a few rungs on the ladder. You've reached a certain level of stability, a decent job, a predictable routine, enough money to pay the bills with a little left over. And somewhere along the way, without quite realizing when it happened, you stopped reaching. You stopped stretching. You stopped pushing yourself into uncomfortable territory. And here's the terrifying part: it felt good. It felt responsible. It felt like you'd finally earned the right to coast a little. But there's a whisper that won't leave you alone, isn't there? A quiet discomfort beneath all that comfort. A sense that you were meant for something more. Now, here's what I need you to understand before you dismiss that whisper. That feeling of contentment, that sense of having arrived, that relief from the constant struggle, it's not what you think it is. It's not peace. It's not satisfaction. It's sedation. And while you're telling yourself you're resting, something else is happening. Something you can't quite see in the moment. Consider this carefully. In nature, there's a principle that governs all living things. Everything is either growing or dying. There is no static state. The tree that stops growing has already begun to decay. The muscle that stops being challenged begins to atrophy. The skill that stops being practiced begins to fade. And the same is true for you. Your mind, your abilities, your potential, they're not fixed resources sitting in a vault somewhere, safe and sound. They're living capacities that must be exercised or they diminish. When you choose comfort, when you settle into the familiar, when you stop doing things that challenge you, you're not maintaining your current level. You're declining. Slowly, imperceptibly, but inevitably. Here's the fascinating part: the very thing that feels like safety is actually risk. The very thing that feels like wisdom, knowing when to be satisfied, can be the greatest foolishness. Because comfort is a beautiful prison. It gives you just enough satisfaction to stop you from pursuing the extraordinary life you're capable of living. Think about it this way. Every morning, you face a choice. You can do what's comfortable, hit the snooze button, skip the difficult task, avoid the challenging conversation, stay in the job that bores you, maintain relationships that no longer serve you, or you can lean into the discomfort that comes with growth. The comfortable choice feels wise in the moment. The growing choice feels reckless, unnecessary, even foolish. Why fix what isn't broken? Why risk what's working well enough? But well enough is the epitaph of mediocrity. Here's what transforms everything: discomfort is not your enemy. It's your compass. It's pointing you toward growth. The things that make you uncomfortable, learning that new skill, having that difficult conversation, taking that calculated risk, those are the things that expand your capacity. Comfort doesn't maintain your potential. Challenge does. And the beautiful truth is this: when you make peace with discomfort, when you start choosing growth over ease, something remarkable happens. You discover that you're capable of far more than you imagined. That whisper you've been hearing, it's not discontent, it's invitation, and it's time to answer. Blame is expensive, responsibility is profitable. There's a pattern I've observed in people who remain stuck year after year, wondering why their circumstances never improve. They can tell you exactly who wronged them. They have a detailed catalog of the injustices they've suffered: the boss who overlooked them, the partner who betrayed them, the parents who didn't provide enough, the economy that worked against them, the lucky breaks that went to someone else. And here's what makes this so insidious: they're often right. Those things happened. Those injustices are real. And every time they recount these stories, people nod in sympathy and validate their position. But while they're collecting agreements about whose fault it is, something precious is slipping away. Time, opportunity, power, their very future. And the worst part, they don't even realize what's being stolen from them. Let me ask you to pause for just a moment and consider something. Every minute you spend assigning blame is a minute you're not spending solving the problem. Every ounce of energy you invest in proving someone else was wrong is energy you're not investing in making your situation right. Blame feels productive. It feels like you're doing something, like you're fighting back, like you're standing up for yourself. But here's what's actually happening. When you blame someone or something for your circumstances, you're making a trade. You're trading your power for the comfort of being right. You're trading your agency for the sympathy of others. You're trading your future for the satisfaction of proving the past wasn't your fault. And it's the most expensive trade you'll ever make. Let me show you why. When you say, "I'm not where I want to be because of what they did," you're actually saying something far more profound. You're saying, "My life is in their hands, not mine." You're giving them control. You're making them the author of your story. You're positioning yourself as a character in their narrative rather than the creator of your own. Now, here's the truth that can change everything for you. The moment, and I mean the precise moment, you accept complete responsibility for your life, everything shifts. Not because your circumstances suddenly change, not because the past gets rewritten, but because you reclaim your power. Responsibility is not about fault. Let me say that again because it's crucial. The responsibility is not about fault. You're not claiming that everything that happened to you was your fault. You're claiming something far more important. From this moment forward, your response is your choice. The person who cut you off in traffic, not your fault. Your reaction to it, your responsibility. The childhood you didn't choose, not your fault. What you do with the rest of your life, your responsibility. The opportunities you weren't given, not your fault. The opportunities you create from here, your responsibility. You see, blame looks backward and asks, "Whose fault is this?" Responsibility looks forward and asks, "What am I going to do about it?" One perspective leaves you powerless. The other makes you unstoppable. And here's the beautiful part. The moment you stop needing others to accept responsibility for your situation, you stop needing their permission to change it. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come. You stop hoping that circumstances will align perfectly. You simply act. Blame is expensive because it costs you your future. Responsibility is profitable because it gives you back your life. And that trade, that's one you can afford to make. Obscurity of purpose guarantees mediocrity of result. You know what keeps most people trapped in lives they don't really want? It's not lack of intelligence. It's not lack of opportunity. It's not even lack of effort. I've watched people work themselves to exhaustion, putting in long hours, staying busy from morning till night, convinced they're building something meaningful. And then, 10 years later, they look around and realize they're no closer to what they wanted than when they started. They've been moving, certainly, working absolutely. But moving where? Working toward what? And that's when the haunting question arrives. Where did all that time go? The truth is painful, but it's also the key to everything. Before you turn away from what I'm about to say, give me just a moment. There's a reason ships have destinations before they leave port. There's a reason architects draw blueprints before breaking ground. There's a reason surgeons know exactly what they're operating on before making the first incision. And that same principle governs your life, whether you acknowledge it or not. Here's what I've discovered after studying thousands of lives, both successful and unsuccessful. Your mind is the most sophisticated goal-seeking mechanism ever created. It's designed, engineered, built to hit targets. But, and this is crucial, it must have a target to hit. When you give it a clear, specific, definite goal, something remarkable happens. Your subconscious mind goes to work. It begins filtering information, spotting opportunities, making connections you would have otherwise missed. It works 24 hours a day, even while you sleep, moving you toward that target. But when you don't give it a target, it doesn't go idle. It still works just as hard. The problem is, it works toward whatever catches its attention in the moment. The urgent phone call, the distracting notification, the opinion of whoever spoke to you last. You become like a ship without a rudder, blown by every wind, carried by every current, moving constantly but arriving nowhere in particular. Most people, if you ask them what they want, will tell you in vague generalities. I want to be successful. I want to be happy. I want to be financially secure. And they wonder why these things never materialize. It's because successful isn't a destination, it's a direction without coordinates. Happy isn't a target, it's a feeling without a blueprint. Financially secure isn't a goal, it's a wish without a number. The universe doesn't respond to vague wishes. It responds to specific intentions. Here's what changes everything. When you define precisely what you want, not just the general category, but the specific outcome, your entire life reorganizes itself around that definition. Write down exactly what success looks like for you. Not in terms of feelings, but in terms of measurable results. What does your bank account show? What does your daily schedule look like? What specific skills have you mastered? What concrete achievements have you accomplished? The moment you make it specific, you give your mind something to work with. You give it a target to hit. And suddenly, all that effort you've been expending stops scattering in 1,000 directions and starts concentrating on one. A scattered effort produces scattered results. A focused effort produces focused results. The choice has always been yours. Make it specific, make it clear, make it definite, and watch what happens. Consistency defeats intensity. I want to tell you about the most common mistake I see people make when they decide to change their lives. They get inspired. Maybe they read a book, attend a seminar, or have a moment of clarity where they finally see what needs to change. And in that moment of inspiration, they go all in. They wake up at 5 in the morning. They overhaul their entire diet. They commit to working out 2 hours a day. They plan to read a book a week, network every evening, and completely transform themselves within 30 days. And for a week, maybe 2, they're on fire. They're doing it. They're actually doing it. And then something happens. Life throws a curveball. They get sick. Work gets demanding. They miss a day, then 2, then a week. And suddenly, that magnificent transformation has become just another abandoned New Year's resolution. Another reminder that change is hard. Another piece of evidence that maybe they're just not disciplined enough. Sound familiar? Now, before you conclude that change is too difficult or that you lack what it takes, let me show you something. The problem wasn't your commitment. The problem wasn't your desire. The problem was your strategy. Because you were operating on a myth, the myth that transformation requires heroic effort, that success demands intensity, that you need to be exceptional every single day. But here's what actually builds a life worth living. Imagine 2 people decide to get in shape. The first person, filled with determination, commits to running 5 miles every day. The second person, more modest in their approach, commits to running just 1 mile every day. Now, the first person is impressive when they show up. But life is unpredictable. Some days they're tired. Some days it's raining. Some days work runs late. And when they can't do the 5 miles, they often don't do anything at all. It's all or nothing. The second person, they run their mile, every single day. Rain or shine, tired or energized, busy or free. 1 mile, and here's what happens over time: that 1 mile becomes automatic. It becomes who they are. It's not something they have to motivate themselves to do, it's simply what they do. And 6 months later, guess who's in better shape? Guess who's still running? The person who showed up consistently, not intensely. You see, intensity is impressive, it catches the eye, it makes for good stories. But consistency is what compounds. Consistency is what builds. Consistency is what transforms. Think about it this way. If you write 1 page a day, just 1 page, you'll have a 365-page book by the end of the year. If you save $10 a day, you'll have $3.60 by year's end. If you learn 1 new word in a foreign language each day, you'll know 365 words, enough for basic conversation in 12 months. 1 page, $10, 1 word. These don't sound impressive. They don't feel like enough. And that's precisely why they work. They're sustainable. They're manageable. They don't require you to be superhuman. They just require you to be consistent. Here's the liberating truth that can change your life today. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be intense. You don't need to overhaul everything at once. You just need to show up, do the small thing, every single day. Because small things done consistently create massive results. That's not theory. That's mathematics. And it starts today. Your thoughts are architects, your habits are builders. Let me ask you something that might be uncomfortable. When was the last time you paid attention to what you were thinking? Not the big, conscious decisions. We all notice those. But the constant stream of internal commentary that runs through your mind every waking moment. The thoughts you have about yourself when you make a mistake. The assumptions you make about what's possible for you. The stories you tell yourself about why things are the way they are. Most people go through their entire lives never questioning this internal dialogue. They accept it as truth, as reality, as just the way things are. And meanwhile, thought by thought, day by day, they're constructing the very life they say they don't want. They're building their own prison and wondering why they feel trapped. The connection between what you're thinking and what you're living isn't obvious at first. It should be, but it isn't. So let me show you how this actually works. Every thought you think is like a blueprint. Your mind doesn't distinguish between a thought about reality and reality itself. It simply responds to the blueprint you give it. When you think, "I'm not good with money," your mind doesn't argue. It accepts that blueprint and begins organizing your behavior to match it. You'll overlook opportunities to save. You'll make impulsive purchases. You'll avoid learning about finances because, after all, you're not good with money. The thought becomes a prediction that fulfills itself. But here's where it gets really interesting and really powerful. Those thoughts, repeated over time, become beliefs, and beliefs direct your attention. If you believe success is for other people, you literally won't see the opportunities right in front of you. Your mind will filter them out. If you believe you're unlucky, you'll remember every setback and forget every break that went your way. You're not lying. You're not being negative on purpose. You're simply seeing what your beliefs allow you to see. And those beliefs, they direct your habits. Your habits are your beliefs in action. Show me someone who believes they're destined for mediocrity, and I'll show you someone whose daily habits guarantee it. Show me someone who believes they're capable of excellence, and I'll show you someone whose habits are building it, brick by brick, day by day. This is the part most people miss. Your life right now is the physical manifestation of your habitual thinking. The body you have is built by your habitual thoughts about food, exercise, and health. The bank account you have is built by your habitual thoughts about money value and security. The relationships you have are built by your habitual thoughts about your worthiness, trust, and connection. Your thoughts drew the plans. Your habits constructed the building. And you're living in it right now. Now here's the extraordinary news, the part that changes everything. If your thoughts created this life, new thoughts can create a different one. You're not stuck with the blueprint you've been using. You can redraw it, starting today, starting with the very next thought you choose to think. Change your thoughts, and you change the blueprint. Change the blueprint, and your habits, those tireless builders, will construct something entirely new. You've had the power all along. The question is, what are you going to build? So here's what I want you to do right now, today, before this moment passes. First, decide, not think about, or consider, decide. What is the one goal that, if achieved, would change everything for you? Write it down. Make it clear. Second act, take one concrete step toward that goal before the sun sets today. Not a big step, not a perfect step, just a step. Send the email, make the call, write the first page, do the first rep. Third, commit. Commit to doing one thing every single day that moves you toward your goal. No matter how small, consistency is the compound interest of self-improvement. And finally, persist. When you stumble, and you will, get back up. When you fail, and you might, extract the lesson and try again. When others doubt you, and they certainly will, let your results speak for you. You were not put on this earth to drift. You were put here to become someone, to build something, to matter. The question is not whether you'll face obstacles. You will. The question is, will you let them stop you, or will you let them shape you? 25,000 failures couldn't stop the truth from emerging, and nothing can stop you except you, so start. Today. Right now. Your extraordinary life is waiting, but it won't wait forever. Good night.